Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are here on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM every Thursday from 3 to 3:30. And we're so excited that you're joining us here on today. And Merry Christmas to everybody as we prepare for the holiday seasons and all the good food and all the fun and the family time. We wanted to share some tips with you. And we're going to be talking today about holiday eating and food safety. And I have back with me in the studio today Angie Watson, who is my dear friend. She's moved out of Greenville, but she's still here connected with us here on Family Health Matters. So, Angie, welcome back to Family Health Matters. I hope you're doing well down there in your new location. Miss you so much, but glad you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's good to be back and good to see your face.
Well, listen, we've got a lot to talk about. And today we're going to be talking about holiday eating and food safety. So I said that I am not going to do a lot of talking because I want us to cover all of this wonderful information that you have to share with us on today, because all of it is very, very prevalent and good information that needs to be shared. So, Angie, I'm gonna let you jump in, and we're gonna start off just talking about just healthier holiday choices, making good choices while we're enjoying all that good home cooking, whether we cook it ourselves or whether we have it catered or whether we share in the cooking, however it happens, but good food. So tell us about some healthy holiday food choices and how to stay healthy during the season.
Yes, I think, the second part of what you said, how to stay healthy during the season, kind of keeping that focus. And a lot of times, to be honest, this time of year, people don't want to hear from the dietitian. I work in a nutrition counseling practice now, and we're having people cancel left, right, and center. And everyone's ready to say, "Oh, I'll start in January." But my thing is, we don't have to be perfect, and sometimes we're all or none. We're either going to go gung ho, and I'm just going to, devour. I'm going to eat whatever I want over the holidays. Or, I'm going to stick to this very strict diet. I'm not going to enjoy anything that's remotely, unhealthy. But I think there's a happy medium in there and there's a balance. And that's really what we want to strive for. Food is associated with so many things, traditions, family gatherings, just, social things, memories that we have of childhood. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying some less healthful foods on occasion and in moderation, but those are the qualifying things. So we want to say, okay, how can we navigate this holiday season and enjoy food? Enjoying food is part of healthy eating, but also not having that food be a detriment to our health. That's really where we want to go. So one of the biggest things I would say is having a plan, set a goal for yourself, and really think about, okay, what are going to be some of the challenges with eating over this holiday season, and how do I want to navigate those? How do I on the other side of this season, do I want to, for instance, maintain my weight? The state has a great program called Maintain, Don't Gain, which really focuses on maintaining your weight over the holiday season through Thanksgiving and Christmas, and not gaining. So we don't necessarily have to be on a strict diet, but just being a little more mindful. And if we do indulge in, that sweet treat, having just a small piece and not, 5 pieces of different kinds of pie or cake. So I think just keeping that goal in mind and say, okay, I do want to be healthy. I don't want to, maybe my goal is to lose weight in this coming year, but I don't want to start January 1 being 5 pounds heavier, because every little pound is not easy to lose, right? It's easy to gain weight. It is. But the effort you have to put in to lose those 5 pounds, it's a lot. So let's try to not put on extra weight during the holidays. If we don't lose weight during the holidays, that's fine, but just sort of maintain where we're at. And decide for yourself that that's what you're going to do, make that decision and commit to it. As far as our kind of navigating food choices. So, what we always recommend is something called the plate method. And I didn't bring my little visuals with me today. But actually, I do have a plate. Not sure if I can. I'm trying to
Oh,
navigate
there
and show in the
it is. Okay.
video. So, this is the actual plate that shows, we want half our plate to be vegetables. A quarter of our plate would be our meat or protein. And then a quarter of our plate up here, we have some rice. That would be our carbohydrate. So most of us, when we look at a plate, it may have all these components, but maybe not in these portions, right? So we might have half
Right.
our plate filled with meat and or half the plate filled with those good starches and carbohydrates and, maybe a little bit of green in there to make it look good. But we want to kind of rethink that and say, okay, sometimes our meats are high in fat and they're high in calories, and sometimes those carbohydrates, the calories really add up. And so we can enjoy those things, but maybe in smaller portions and focusing on, those vegetables. So, the green beans or the collards or, cucumbers and vinegar, things like that, that you may have that um, are low in calories and lower in carbohydrates and kind of just balancing things out. Um, the other thing would be to kind of make choices. So I often say to folks, when it comes to nutrition, it's almost like having a budget, like a financial budget. So depending on your nutrition goals, what you're budgeting may be different. It may be sodium if you have high blood pressure. It may be calories if you're trying to lose weight. I mostly work with folks with diabetes, so we're looking a lot at carbohydrates. But whatever it is, we say, okay, at a meal, you can have so much of, X, Y, or Z, the calories, carbs, sodium, and you get to choose how you spend those. So most of us
Wow.
love carbs, me included. And so, I'll use the example of, say, at Thanksgiving and Christmas, my family always has dressing or stuffing. We do turkey for both meals, and we always have dressing. And I love dressing. And
Yes.
so, and often we have mashed potatoes and some form of sweet potato and like dinner rolls. But for me, I'm going to look at all those carbohydrate foods and say, okay, mashed potatoes I can have any old day. Even the dinner roll, I can have that anytime. Only time of year we do dressing or stuffing is, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm prioritizing. I'm going to have that and then maybe forego some of the others and fill my plate with that good lean turkey, fill up on some vegetables. And maybe I'll have, a small portion of the sweet potato casserole, just kind of thinking
Mhm.
where are those things that are really going to raise our blood sugar and work against us as far as calories and contribute into weight, and how can we just prioritize those foods rather than just eating everything. Kind of think about which of these flavors do I really like and I would really miss if I didn't have it, and be more selective. We don't have to put everything on our plate.
Oh, I love that. I like the thought of that process of prioritizing and using it as a plan, as especially the budgeting piece. That how to choose what's going to be what you could have every day versus what's going to be something that's new. That's cool. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and the other thing is, honestly, we want to do well, with those meals. Um, and if you go a little bit, over, it's going to be fine. It's not one meal or one day that works against us as far as gaining weight or, terrible effects on our health. But what can happen is during this holiday season, we have different, gatherings or holiday parties, or people are bringing, goodies into the office, or, there's baked goods coming into church, or if you go to someone's house and everyone's bringing food and food and food. So it's all those things kind of adding up that can really contribute to that weight gain. And so, again, just having a strategy and saying, okay, sometimes I'm going to maybe treat myself a little bit. I'm going to indulge in that food that's less healthy. But for the most part, I'm going to try to still, eat in a way that fuels my body well during the season. And if I do have a treat, it's going to be a small amount and it's not going to be every single day. So again, finding that middle ground. You don't have to totally deprive yourself. You don't have to be a Grinch and say no to everybody's Christmas cookies. But if you want to say no, that's okay too, of course. But if you enjoy, Christmas cookies, for instance, and that's one of your priority foods, then go ahead and enjoy it. But again, a small amount and not frequently, not all the time.
Okay. And when you were talking about the different foods that you have to eat for Thanksgiving, I mean for Christmas, one of the things that I've heard you talk about before is sort of what is it called when you go around and you look at everything that's on the table and then you decide which ones is most priority. What did you call that? It's
Um, I don't know that if I have really a name for it, but sort of like, yeah, perusing
yeah.
the food, in advance. So if it's yeah, whether it's a party or a family gathering, most times we'll especially if it's a big gathering and there's a line for food, right? We wait in line, we get up there, we get our plate, and everything's in a certain order, and we just start adding food to our plate as we go along, and that plate's getting more full and more full. But then we get to the end and there's like, oh my gosh, my aunt's mac and cheese, I definitely need some of that. So even though our plate's full, we're piling it on. And so a better strategy is to kind of scope out all the food in advance, and kind of say, okay, yeah, there's, just like I gave the example of the carbs. Dinner roll, mashed potatoes, dressing, sweet potato casserole, and prioritizing. It would be the same with choices, at say a family gathering, and kind of saying, okay, all this food looks good. Um, but even if I take a small amount of all of it, volume is probably going to be too much. So saying no to certain things, and then considering, what we do, say yes to and no to. There's all kinds of social implications of our food too. And so you may say, well, okay, I don't really want, Uncle John's green bean casserole, but I know he worked really hard on it. He's really proud of it. He really wants me to try some. I'll take a spoonful. I won't take other things that factor in too, right? And I'm not saying we don't
Right.
kind of give in to that pressure. It's good to stand your ground with making healthier choices. But we also want to be considerate of other people's feelings and just think about, okay, what else is impacting my food choices here, and what do I need to consider?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So after you've looked over everything and you've got your plate set and you're ready to eat, and after you've finished eating, and
Mm-hmm.
now, I won't say most people, but people have a tendency to take a nap because all of our energy and all of our blood rushes to our belly
Yeah.
to start digesting all this food. And then so we decide, gosh, I'm so tired. So
Yeah.
what do you recommend?
Yes. So I know that's what our brain wants, but that's one of the worst things to do, especially to lay down shortly after eating. So, I would say, pause. One important thing is to, when you're done your meal, step away from the table. A lot of times, I mean, everyone does different, but, sometimes people will have all the food on the table, and, you're passing the dishes back and forth, or you reach in and scoop out whatever dish it is. But then when you're finished your plate, if you're sitting there talking, engaging with family and friends, but that food is still in front of us, we're tempted to kind of take another dip of, that item, even though we're not hungry. So
Mhm.
my recommendation is to, once you're finished your plate, step away from the food, or step the food away from you. So take all those dishes off the table and put them in the on the kitchen counter,
Right.
or move to the living room, and and sit, and I think you do want to give a few minutes for your food to digest, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and just kind of sit and relax and enjoy each other's company. But then, instead of a nap, the best thing to do would be to get a little bit of exercise. So maybe
Mhm.
go for a walk. I know some people do not like this cold weather. I'm from Canada, and so I do like a good brisk walk in the cold air. I just like the feeling of that cold air on my cheeks. Um, so that could be an option. Get a few folks together and go out for a walk outside. Or if that's not your thing or it's too cold, put on some music and dance. Have a dance off contest with it, and just laugh and
Yeah.
have fun. And so, yeah, you'll feel better. I know the last thing we feel like doing is moving when when we've had a big meal, but you'll just feel so much better. And it will help lower your blood sugar afterward, your blood pressure. Just burning those calories, and you still get to socialize. You're not sleeping in a corner somewhere. So that would be my recommendation.
Great, great. Now, what about the water and skipping? I've heard some people say I'm not needing anything up until dinner time, and it's time to eat. And so I'm not going to eat breakfast. I'm not going to eat lunch, so that I can have all my calories during dinner, during our Christmas dinner. What do you recommend?
Yes, that's a very common strategy. And it honestly, it makes sense on the surface. But physiologically, it does not make sense because it's going to work against us as far as our body. So we're thinking, okay, I'm going to save calories now so I can have more calories later. The problem is in trying to save those calories and eating very light or little to no food, we create excess hunger. Um, and we also set up to, I talked about having a plan. In that case, we're planning on overeating. We're planning on overindulging. And again, eating larger portions at times is okay, but generally, it's not good for our digestion. It's not good for blood sugars. It's not good for blood pressure, all of those things. And so, having more, spreading our foods out during the day is a better way to go. And then, like I said, prioritizing, being more choosy with the types of foods that we do treat ourselves to during the gathering. So, it's best to eat, your regular meals during the day. And even, especially if you're going somewhere and there really won't be, healthy options or many healthy options, have a healthy snack, before going. Eat some vegetables or eat some, you know, lean chicken or something like that to take the edge off the hunger. And that way you're not starving. Because if you think about when we're really hungry and our brain is like, eat, 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 we don't want to eat salad. We don't want to eat, might not even want to eat, greens or green beans, or like, give me some meat, give me the heavy stuff. I want real
Yeah.
food. So, but if we've had a little something and we're not starving, then we can truly enjoy the food. We're not just ravenous and trying to eat, as fast as we can and a whole bunch of volume. So
Right.
it really is, the strategy is to fuel, before the big meal or big event.
Okay, so we got about 10 minutes, but I really want you to talk about food safety during the
Yeah.
holidays. So if you could go through, I know there's quite a few things we want to touch base, but go through and highlight the things that you think are most important. And then if we have time, we can go back and touch on some things that we may have skipped over. So I'm not going to say it, I'm going to let you go for it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think, food safety is a super important topic. Um, a lot of times there are what they call foodborne illnesses, or food used to be called food poisoning, or I guess more the lay term is food poisoning. The clinical term is foodborne illness that happens, and a lot of times people don't even know that it was food that made them sick, and it's so preventable. So I am pretty passionate about this. I think especially, I'll use the term back in the day, people got by with, keeping food out on the counter all day,
Yeah.
and either maybe didn't get sick or just didn't associate, getting sick with, okay, that food probably, was at risk of getting extra bacteria in it. Because the thing is with this food poisoning or foodborne illness, sometimes the symptoms are immediate, but many times with many of those bacteria, the symptoms are not immediate. So people think, oh, if the food was bad, I'm going to immediately, vomit it up, or I'm going to be running to the bathroom. Not always. Sometimes it takes time for that to get in your system, and then the bacteria kind of show up and have the results. So it could be, 12 hours later. It could be several days later even. And so I think that especially if, we've had a habit of, or a family has had a habit of, um, not always keeping the food either, cold or hot. We'll talk about something called the temperature danger zone, where bacteria tend to grow the most. But if we've had that habit, we think, oh, it's fine. We've done this for years and,
Yeah.
nobody's ever really got sick. But they may have, and we didn't realize it. So lots of times what they call a GI bug, I think, is a virus. A lot of times it's because people ate something that had been, contaminated or had gone bad. And lots of times you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it. Things can smell totally normal, taste totally normal, but the bacteria are still living in there, and that will cause issues in our body. So, especially for those who have weakened immune systems, so the elderly, children, um, people who take medicines that suppress their immune system. Those people have to be very careful. Something that a healthy young adult could tolerate may make our 82-year-old grandmother very sick, and even possibly hospitalized or death. It can be very, very serious. So there's several factors involved with keeping food safe, and the FDA has I'll say a campaign or a slogan that has 4 key words, and we're going to go through that kind of quickly today. But those words are clean, separate, cook, and chill. So those are 4 key steps that will help us to keep food safe. So starting with clean, the goal is to keep, of course, our surfaces, the places that we store food, the places that we cook food, keeping all of those clean. Hand washing is super important. So whoever's doing the cooking or food preparation, making sure we're washing our hands frequently. Definitely washing hands after touching things like raw meat or things that could spread contaminants. And like I said, washing down surfaces, things like that. So keeping clean is the start. The second thing is separate, or keeping things separate. So for instance, when you're storing food, one rule of thumb is if you have something like raw meat, and I use raw meat as an example because it's a prime place for a bacteria to grow. You don't want to store it above or on top of something else in your refrigerator, or on a rack where the juices could potentially drip down onto something else. So the bacteria that are in that meat, once the meat is cooked, we'll talk about the cooking process, but the heat of that cooking, the high heat, will destroy the bacteria.
Right.
However, if you have the hamburger sitting on top of a dish of potato salad in the refrigerator, it's possible that some of that drippings, the drippings from the raw meat got on the potato salad, when you take off the saran wrap or whatever. And then someone's going to eat that potato salad without heating it. So those bacteria are not killed. And that's one way that we can get sick. So being careful how you store food. Definitely separating, ready to eat foods away from things like raw meat. Also using separate like cutting boards for say meat and vegetables. And with the meats too, just very good cleaning activities. So if you're, cutting chicken or prepping chicken, for instance, making sure you're washing your hands well after that, wiping down the surfaces. I like to use sort of a disposable wipe, kind of the Lysol wipes or whatever. But if you do use a cloth, make sure you're using, lots of soap and hot water, and rinsing that cloth out extremely well with more soap and water after wiping up something like chicken juice. Otherwise, you can, wipe up the chicken juice, and the next time you go to wipe a surface with that cloth, you're potentially spreading that around. So that's the separation piece. The cooking piece is heating a food to a temperature which kills off any bacteria that may be present. So there are different temperatures, let's say for different meats. I always recommend getting a meat thermometer, or a food thermometer, I should say, to check the temperature of the food and to ensure it's done. Because again, we can't always tell by how it looks. Um,
Yeah.
Even food that has been already cooked and you're reheating it, it still has to reach a maximum temperature. That temperature is 165 degrees for reheated foods, by the way. um,
Good.
but
That's good to know. Yeah. Good.
Yes, because some people think, well, it was already cooked, but through the process of it cooling down, and then warming up again, it's in a what we call the temperature danger zone. So I'm going to take just a second and explain that. Temperature danger zone is between the temperatures of 40 degrees and 140 degrees. So that's where bacteria grow most rapidly. So to put that in perspective, 40 degrees would be, above would be, and below would be like a refrigeration temperature. And then 140 degrees above that is where we start to get adequate hot temperatures for like our meat to be cooked to. Anywhere in between there, kind of room temperature, lukewarm-ish, between that 40 and 140 degrees, the bacteria actually double in number in as
Oh,
little as
wow.
20 minutes. So the goal is not to have food in that temperature danger zone for more than 2 hours. So if you think about, we dish up our meal, everything's nice and hot when we eat, everything's still on the counter, on the stove, or on the table where we put the dishes or whatever, not letting those things stay out longer than 2 hours. And that can help our nutrition too, because guess what? When it stays out, what do? We go back and pick it in an hour or two, right? We might not even be hungry.
Right.
Like, ooh, I'm going to the kitchen. Let me grab a little shot of turkey, or a little spoonful of this or spoonful of that. So it can also help us to, have self-control with not overeating. So that's super important. You either want a food to be held hot. If you have a way to hold it hot, like you'll see at restaurants, buffets, they have a heat source, under the trays of food. That's to hold it hot. Or you want it to be cold at refrigeration temperature or below. We want to stay away from that in between where it's sort of lukewarm. And I know it can be common for a lot of folks just to, after we have a big spread, to leave that food out for hours
Yeah.
until the next meal. Or some people I've seen, I know someone who was saying that they used to just like put like a cloth over it and then sleep all the night and like get up the next day and eat some.
Oh, wow.
Person lived to tell about it, but I don't want to take that chance.
That's right. That's right. Well,
So
so
yes,
Angela, we're running down out of time.
yes,
I would like to say, I remember when you said this, and I don't remember if you said it this time, but you were talking about knowing what foods to eat. You said, when in doubt, throw it out. So
yeah.
if you don't know for sure, you need to go ahead and get rid of it.
That's right. And honestly, it's so hard to do. I mean, I grew up, not wasting food, eat everything on your plate. And with the cost of groceries nowadays, it is really hard to throw food away because we know just how much it costs. But if you think about it, it is not worth your health. It is not worth a trip to the emergency room, paying $150 for the ambulance because you've had to get rushed to the hospital from getting sick from food. It is just not worth it to take that chance.
Well, Angie, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for sharing all this wonderful information with us. I appreciate it so very much. And it was a lot to cover, but it was definitely needed. So thank you very much. And again, I am your host, Wendy Bridgers, on Family Health Matters. And we are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Angie, thank you again. And Merry Christmas to all of you. And be safe and eat healthy and wise. Love you. Merry Christmas.